The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber groaned open. 12,000 alien representatives from 900 worlds turned their attention to the entrance. Their translator devices crackled with anticipation as they waited to see who dared enter without permission. A single human woman walked in. She wore no ceremonial robes, no diplomatic badges, just a plain black uniform that seemed to swallow the chamber's light. Her boots struck the crystal floor with the steady rhythm of a war drum. High Arbiter Thalos, a towering insect creature whose many eyes had watched civilizations rise and fall, leaned forward on his throne of living coral. His sharp mandibles clicked with amusement. The Terran diplomatic mission sends one representative. His voice boomed through the chamber. After what has happened, Earth sends a single female to face the judgment of the Galactic Council. The woman stopped at the center of the chamber. She stood directly beneath the oculus, the massive dome through which starlight poured down like divine judgment. She did not bow. Whispers swept through the assembled delegates. The Vortani ambassador's tentacles twisted with anger. The Keth delegation's glowing crests flashed red. Even the ancient primarchs, beings of pure energy who rarely showed emotion, flickered with disbelief. "I am Admiral Helena Cross," the woman said. Her voice carried without any amplification. "And I have not come to face your judgment." High Arbiter Thalos narrowed his compound eyes. "Then why have you come, human? Your species stands accused of crimes against the Galactic Compact. Your primitive fleet has been surrounded. Your colony worlds have been blocked. You have no power, no allies, no hope." Admiral Cross reached into her uniform pocket. Every weapon in the chamber charged instantly. Security drones dropped from hidden places in the ceiling. 300 council guards appeared from nowhere, their plasma rifles aimed at her head. She pulled out a small device and placed it on the floor. 6 standard months ago," she said, "a group of human children visited the Meridian Station as part of a cultural exchange program. They were between 8 and 12 years old. They came with gifts, art, music, stories. They came to show the galaxy that humanity wanted peace." The device hummed to life, displaying the smiling faces of 43 children in matching blue uniforms. On the 3rd day of their visit, Station Commander Beltrix ordered his security forces to open fire on the children while they slept. He claimed they had tried to steal secret technology. Admiral Cross's jaw tightened. They were children. They had crayons and picture books. The investigation cleared Commander Beltrix of any wrongdoing, High Arbiter Thalos interrupted. The matter was settled according to galactic law. 42 children died that day. Admiral Cross continued as if he had not spoken. Their bodies were burned before their parents could even say goodbye, before we could confirm what had happened. She looked up at the High Arbiter, and something in her eyes made that ancient being pause. But one child survived. The display shifted to show a single face. A girl, perhaps 9 years old, with dark hair and wide brown eyes. Her name was Lily Torres. She was shot 11 times. The security forces left her for dead, but Lily did not die. She crawled through 3 kilometers of maintenance tunnels, bleeding from wounds that should have killed her, and she reached an emergency beacon. "Admiral." Cross's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. "Lily lived long enough to send a message to Earth. 17 minutes of footage showing everything. Every shot, every scream, every child begging for their lives. She died 43 seconds after the message finished sending." The chamber had gone completely silent. That footage reached Earth. Every human on every colony world, every station, every ship saw what you did to our children. And something happened, something you never expected. High Arbiter Thalos clicked his mandibles nervously. "What are you saying, human?" Admiral Cross smiled. It was not a friendly expression. "You have surrounded our fleet with 12,000 warships. You have blocked our colonies with another 8,000. You have aimed your biggest ships at Earth itself. She tilted her head. Tell me, High Arbiter, have you noticed anything strange about your fleet positions in the last hour? Thalos turned to his tactical officers. They were frantically checking their displays. The color drained from their faces. That is impossible, one of them whispered. What is happening? Thalos demanded. Admiral Cross answered for them. Your 12,000 ships surrounding our fleet? They are gone. Destroyed. Every single one. Your blocking forces? Gone. Your weapons aimed at Earth? She paused. They now belong to us. Warning alarms began screaming throughout the chamber. Red emergency lights painted everything in crimson. You killed our children, Admiral Cross said, her voice rising above the noise. And in doing so, you woke something that humanity had buried long ago. Something we had hoped we would never need again. The massive view screens around the chamber flickered to life. They showed feeds from across the galaxy. Council warships burning. Stations going dark. And everywhere, moving too fast to track, shadows that looked almost human, but moved with impossible speed. What are they? Thalos demanded, his composure finally breaking. What have you done? Admiral Cross turned to face him directly. You wanted to know why Earth only sent one representative to face your judgment, High Arbiter? It is because I am not here to negotiate. I am not here to beg. I am here to deliver a message from the people of Earth. She straightened to her full height. We gave you peace. We gave you friendship. We gave you our children. And you murdered them. So now we are taking something back. The doors of the chamber exploded inward, and the galaxy learned why humanity had chosen to bury its warriors. To understand what happened next, we must go back 6 months. Back to when 43 children boarded a ship called the Horizon's Dream, with hope in their hearts and stars in their eyes. Back to before the galaxy made its terrible mistake. The colony ship, Horizon's Dream, departed Earth orbit on a bright spring morning. 112 passengers were aboard. Among them were 43 children, carefully selected from schools across the planet to join humanity's first youth cultural exchange program. Commander David Reyes watched them from the observation deck. They pressed their faces against the glass, gasping at the stars. They are so young, said Lieutenant Amara Foster, his second in command. Her voice was soft with worry. Are we certain about this, sir? Reyes nodded slowly. The council asked for it specifically. They want to see that humans can be more than soldiers and traders. They want to see our future. He did not say what both of them were thinking. This mission was humanity's best chance to change how the galaxy saw them. For 30 years since first contact, humans had been treated as second-class citizens. Too aggressive, the aliens said. Too unpredictable. Too young. These children were supposed to change that. The journey to Meridian Station took 3 weeks. During that time, the children prepared presentations about Earth's cultures. They practiced songs and dances from a dozen nations. They created artwork to give to their alien hosts. Their teacher, Mrs. Elena Vasquez, worked hard to make sure everything was perfect. Remember, she told them on the morning of their arrival, we are ambassadors. Everything we do shows what humanity is like. Be curious, be kind, be brave. 9-year-old Lily Torres raised her hand. Mrs. Vasquez, what if they do not like us? Elena smiled and knelt beside her. Then we will show them why they should. That is what ambassadors do, Lily. We build bridges, even when others want to build walls. Meridian Station was amazing. It was a rotating ring 300 kilometers wide, home to over 2 million beings from 400 different species. It served as the main meeting place for the entire sector. Station Commander Beltrix greeted them at the docking bay. He was Vorton, a species that looked like giant crabs with 4 arms and a hard shell. His eyes never seemed to blink. "Welcome to Meridian," he said through his translator. "The Council is pleased that humanity has accepted our invitation." "We are honored to be here," Commander Reyes replied. Something about Beltrix's tone bothered him, but he could not figure out what. The first 2 days went better than anyone had hoped. The children performed their cultural presentations to packed audiences. They shared meals with alien families. They played games with children from a dozen different species. They asked endless questions about the worlds their new friends called home. Lily Torres became close friends with a young Keth girl named Lumina. The Keth were bioluminescent beings who communicated partly through light patterns. Despite being unable to speak each other's languages, Lily and Lumina communicated through drawings and gestures. "Look," Lily told Mrs. Vasquez on the second evening. She showed her a picture Lumina had drawn. It showed 2 figures, one human and one Keth, holding hands beneath a sky full of stars. "She says we are sisters now." Elena felt tears in her eyes. "That is beautiful, Lily. That is exactly why we came here." On the morning of the 3rd day, everything changed. Commander Reyes was in a meeting with station officials when his communicator exploded with emergency alerts. He ran toward the children's dormitory, his heart pounding with fear he could not explain. He arrived to find Lieutenant Foster standing outside. Her face was white as paper. "Sir," she whispered, "do not go in there." He went in anyway. The walls were burned black. Small bodies lay scattered across the floor. Their blue uniforms were stained dark. The smell of burning and ozone filled the air. Reyes fell to his knees. Later, the station's official report would claim that the children had tried to enter restricted areas, that they had been caught trying to steal classified military secrets, that the security response had been necessary and proper, that it was all lies, that the truth was simpler and far more terrible. Commander Beltrix had received orders from someone high in the Galactic Council. The exchange program was working too well. Humans were making too many friends. The children had to be eliminated before they could complete their mission. What Beltrix had not counted on was Lily Torres. When the first shots rang out, Lily had been in the bathroom. She heard the screams. She heard her friends dying. And she did the only thing her 9-year-old mind could think to do. She hid. She squeezed into a maintenance access panel and held her breath as security forces swept the room. When they were satisfied that everyone was dead, they left. Lily crawled out and saw the bodies of her classmates, her teacher, her friends. Something broke inside her. And something else woke up. She started crawling. The maintenance tunnels of Meridian Station were not made for human children. They were cramped, dark, and full of dangers. But Lily kept moving, even when she was shot crossing an open junction, even when she lost feeling in her legs, even when blood ran into her eyes and she could barely see. 3 kilometers. 17 hours. 11 bullet wounds. She reached an old emergency beacon that had been left behind during a renovation project. With her last strength, she turned on the recording. "My name is Lily Torres," she said into the camera. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I am 9 years old. I am from San Antonio, Texas. Something bad happened. Something really bad. The aliens killed everyone. All my friends, Mrs. Vasquez, everyone." She coughed, and blood splattered the camera lens. "I do not think I'm going to make it. But someone needs to know. Someone needs to tell my mom and dad what happened. Someone needs to make them stop." She activated the distress signal and began transmitting everything. Every piece of footage the station's own security cameras had recorded. Every moment of horror. 17 minutes later, the transmission ended. 43 seconds after that, Lily Torres died alone in a dark tunnel. 300 light years from home. But her message had been received on Earth. In homes and offices and streets around the world, 8 billion humans watched a 9-year-old girl die. They watched her courage. They watched her pain. They watched her final act of bravery against those who had murdered her friends. And something changed, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that did not officially exist. Dr. Victor Holm received an urgent message from the government. He was the last surviving creator of Project Prometheus, a program that had been shut down 40 years ago. Its results had been considered too dangerous for humanity to ever use. "They are activating it," his assistant breathed as they watched Lily's final message. "After all this time, they are actually activating it." Dr. Holmes' face was pale. "God help the galaxy, because nothing else will. Within hours." The message went out to every human colony, every ship, every station. Prometheus was rising, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The Prometheus program had been born from desperation. In the early days of first contact. When humanity first met the Galactic Council, they learned a terrible truth. The galaxy was not a friendly place. Species that could not defend themselves were conquered, enslaved, or destroyed. The Council kept order not through justice, but through overwhelming force. Humanity had nothing to fight back with. Their ships were slower. Their weapons were weaker. Their numbers were smaller. Against the combined power of the galactic community, Earth would have been conquered in days. So they cheated. Dr. Victor Holm had led a team of scientists in a desperate gamble. They studied humanity's evolutionary history, the ancient predator instincts that civilization had buried, the dormant genetic potential that modern medicine thought was useless, the capacity for violence that polite society preferred to forget, and they found a way to unleash it. The first Prometheus subjects were volunteers from Earth's special forces, men and women who had already pushed their bodies and minds to the limits of human ability. The procedure transformed them into something more. Their reflexes became instant. Their strength increased 5 times. Their minds could process tactical information faster than any computer. Most terrifying of all, they developed an ability that science could not explain. They could sense danger before it happened. They could predict enemy movements with perfect accuracy. They could communicate with each other through some kind of mental link. The first field test resulted in 47 Prometheus soldiers destroying an entire fake invasion force of 12,000 enemy fighters. Not a single Prometheus soldier was lost. The program was immediately made top secret. Earth's leaders realized they had created something that could win any war. But it could also start countless others. The galaxy could never know that humanity had such weapons. So they buried the program. Prometheus soldiers were given new identities and scattered across Earth and its colonies. They lived normal lives. They raised families. They grew old. The genetic changes that had transformed them were designed to stay dormant. They would be passed down to their children and grandchildren, but would never activate without a specific trigger. That trigger was Lily Torres's final transmission, hidden within the broadcast, in frequencies that only Prometheus-modified DNA could detect. Was an activation signal. Dr. Holm had designed it 40 years ago as a last resort, a way to wake humanity's sleeping guardians. If they were ever truly needed. 8 billion humans watched Lily die. But among them, scattered across Earth and its colonies, were 47,000 people who carried Prometheus DNA. They felt the signal in their bones, in their blood, in the deepest parts of their minds, and they began to change. Marcus Webb had been a construction worker in Chicago for 23 years. He was 51 years old, slightly overweight, and had constant back pain. His grandfather had been one of the original Prometheus soldiers, but Marcus had never known. When the activation signal hit, he collapsed on a construction site. His co-workers rushed to help, thinking he was having a heart attack. He stood up 20 minutes later. The back pain was gone. So was the extra weight. His muscles had restructured themselves, becoming denser and stronger. His eyes could now see heat signatures and ultraviolet light. His mind felt clear in a way it never had before. "Marcus?" His foreman asked nervously. "Are you okay?" Marcus looked at his hands. He could feel power flowing through them like electricity. He could sense his coworkers' heartbeats. He could smell their fear. He could hear their whispered conversations from 50 meters away. "No," he said quietly. "I do not think I am." Similar scenes happened. Across human space, a schoolteacher in Buenos Aires who suddenly found herself able to defeat a mugger with moves she had never learned. An elderly farmer on Mars Colony 7 looked in the mirror and saw 30 years fade from his face. A teenage girl on Luna Station who could suddenly hear the thoughts of everyone around. Her 40-7,000 humans woke to abilities they had never known they had. And with those abilities came something else. Memories. Genetic memory that Dr. Holm had coded decades ago, containing everything the Prometheus soldiers needed to know about their powers, their purpose, and their enemy. Within 24 hours, they began to organize. Marcus Webb found himself drawn to a warehouse in downtown Chicago. He was guided by an instinct he could not explain. Inside, he found 23 others like himself. They all wore the same expression of confused wonder. "Who are we?" asked a young woman who had been a nurse the day before. A voice answered from the shadows. "You are Prometheus, and the galaxy has given us a reason to rise." Dr. Victor Holmes stepped into the light. At 93 years old, he had made peace with the idea that he would never see his creations wake. But Lily Torres had changed everything. "I created your ancestors," he told them. "I gave them the power to defend humanity against any threat. They lived their lives in peace because the threat never came. But now it has." He activated a display showing the Meridian Station massacre. 43 children are dead. The Council has surrounded our fleet and blocked our colonies. They plan to make an example of humanity. What do they want? Marcus asked. Submission or extinction? They have not decided yet. Dr. Holmes' ancient eyes burned with cold fury. What they are going to get is something else entirely. Over the next 72 hours, humanity transformed. Hidden weapon stores were opened. Secret shipyards began producing vessels designed specifically for Prometheus soldiers. Communication networks were adapted for their telepathic abilities. Most importantly, the awakened Prometheus forces received their orders. Admiral Helena Cross, herself a third-generation Prometheus carrier who had activated like the others, took command. Her plan was bold, unprecedented, and terrifying. The Council expected humanity to either surrender or fight a normal war they could not win. Cross intended to give them neither. "We are not going to defeat their fleets," she explained to the assembled commanders. "We are going to eliminate them. Every ship, every station, every military base they have positioned against us. All at once, before they even know we have moved." "That is 12,000 ships in 3 different locations," someone pointed out, "plus the blocking forces and the big warships." Cross smiled grimly. "I know. That is why we are sending everyone." 47,000 Prometheus soldiers divided into strike teams. Each team was assigned specific targets. Each team was given the same deadline, 6 hours from launch. They left Earth in vessels that looked like ordinary cargo ships, but contained the most advanced stealth technology humanity had ever made. They scattered across the stars, moving toward their targets in silence. The galaxy had no idea they were coming. In the council chamber, High Arbiter Thalos was finishing the terms of humanity's surrender. He had given them 1 week to accept or face destruction. He fully expected them to beg. He did not expect Admiral Helena Cross to walk through his doors with a smile on her face, fire in her eyes. "You seem confident for a species facing extinction," he said. "I am," she replied. Then the alarms started screaming. "Commander." Beltrix received the distress call while reviewing reports in his private quarters on Meridian. "Station. Commander," his communications officers. Voice crackled with barely hidden terror. "We are detecting multiple breaches across the station's military sectors. Security teams are not responding. I repeat, security teams are not." The line went dead. Beltrix tried to activate his personal communicator. Nothing. He moved to the door of his quarters and found it sealed shut. Computer. Override door locks. Authorization. Beltrix 7 Alpha. No response. He heard something moving in the ventilation shaft above him. "Who is there?" he demanded, reaching for the ceremonial blade he kept on his wall. "This is a restricted area. You will identify yourself immediately." The ventilation grate fell to the floor with a clang. A figure dropped through the opening and landed in front of him without making a sound dot. It was a human. A female, perhaps 30 years old, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. She wore all black and carried no visible weapons. "Commander Beltrix," she said. Her voice was soft, almost pleasant. "My name is Lieutenant Teresa Morales. 6 months ago, you ordered your security forces to open fire on 43 human children." Beltrix's mandibles clicked nervously. That action was justified. The investigation. 37 of those children died in the first attack, Teresa continued, as if he had not spoken. 4 more died trying to escape. 1 died from her injuries while trying to reach help. And 1, her voice hardened, 1 died after sending 17 minutes of footage to Earth. Her name was Lily Torres. She was 9 years old. "I was following orders," Beltrix stammered, backing away from her. "The council told me to. We know." Teresa took a step forward. "We know exactly who gave those orders. We know why they were given. We know everything, Commander. The question is not whether you are guilty. The question is whether you deserve a quick death." Beltrix tried to run. He made it exactly 3 steps before Teresa appeared in front of him. She had moved faster than his eyes could follow. She placed 1 hand on his chest, and he felt his hard shell crack beneath her fingers. "The answer is no," she said. "You do not." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out at the same moment. The Vorton High Admiral, who had positioned his fleet to bomb Earth, found his flagship's bridge filled with impossible humans. They moved like ghosts and killed like demons. His 4,000 crew members were dead within 90 seconds. The Admiral himself lasted slightly longer. The Keth matriarch, who had spoken loudest for humanity's destruction, watched her personal guards fall one by one to attackers she could not see. When Teresa Morales appeared before her, the matriarch tried to offer bribes, treaties, anything. Teresa recorded her pleas for historical records before completing her mission. The Primarch Council, ancient beings of pure energy who believed themselves beyond physical harm, discovered that Prometheus soldiers could somehow disrupt their energy forms. 3 of the 7 Primarchs were destroyed. The remaining 4 immediately begged for peace. In the command center of the Council's main battle fleet, Commander Marcus Webb led a strike team of 47 Prometheus soldiers against 12,000 enemy ships. The fleet's commanders had no idea what was happening. Their ship's computers reported everything was normal. Their crew rotations continued without problem. Their weapons were powered and ready. They did not realize that each ship had already been boarded by Prometheus soldiers who had disabled their communications and navigation from within. They did not realize that explosives had been planted in critical Locations throughout every vessel. Marcus gave the signal at exactly 6 hours after launch. 12,000 ships died at the same moment. The commanders did not even have time to scream dot in the council chamber. High Arbiter Thalos watched his tactical displays turn red. One by one, the symbols representing council military forces disappeared. How is this possible? He demanded. His compound eyes darted frantically between displays. We had them surrounded. We had complete control. How are they doing this? Admiral Cross stood calmly at the center of the chamber, hands behind her back. 23,000 years ago, she said, your species achieved space travel. You spread across the galaxy. You conquered lesser species. You built an empire. You became so powerful that you forgot what it meant to face a real threat. She took a step toward his throne. Humanity has only been in space for 300 years. We spent most of that time trying to prove we deserved a place in your galaxy. We sent diplomats instead of soldiers. We offered trade instead of war. We gave you our children as proof of our peaceful intentions. Another step. You murdered them. You murdered 43 children who came with gifts and hope. And in doing so, you reminded us of something we had tried to forget. She stopped directly in front of Thalos' throne. She was close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. We are not a peaceful species, High Arbiter. We are predators who chose to be civilized. We are monsters who learn to love. We are the most dangerous creatures in this galaxy, and we have spent our entire existence trying not to prove it. Please, Thalos whispered. We can negotiate. We can know. Cross's voice was cold as space itself. We cannot. You see, the 43 children you murdered were not just ambassadors. They were a promise that humanity would choose peace, that we would be better than our instincts, that we would rise above what we were born to be. She leaned in close. You broke that promise. Not us. You. The chamber doors burst open, and Prometheus soldiers flooded in. They moved through the assembled delegates like shadows. Their faces showed no emotion. Their movements were precise. The Galactic Council is dissolved, Admiral Cross announced. Your military forces have been eliminated. Your leaders have been arrested. Your ability to make war has been permanently removed. Thalos stared at her with something close to religious terror. What happens now? Now? Cross smiled grimly. Now humanity decides whether to forgive you. And I should warn you, High Arbiter, we are really not very good at forgiveness. The view screens around the chamber activated, displaying a single image. Lily Torres's final transmission, playing on loop. Watch it, Cross commanded. Watch it, and remember. This is what you did. This is what you woke. This is why your civilization is ending. She turned and walked toward the door. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Use them wisely. She left Thalos alone in a chamber surrounded by monsters, watching a 9-year-old girl die over and over again. But the reckoning was not yet complete. One more piece remained. Justice. 70-2 hours. That was how long the galaxy had to decide its fate. 72 hours for species that had ruled the stars for thousands of years to choose. Between surrender and destruction, most chose quickly. The Vorten Empire surrendered within 6 hours. Their military had been completely destroyed. Their leadership was imprisoned. Their colonies were surrounded by Prometheus forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. The new Vorten government signed whatever documents humanity placed before them and prayed they would be allowed to survive. The Keth Collective held out for 37 hours before rebellions forced their ruling council to give up. Many Keth citizens had been horrified by the massacre at Meridian Station. The footage of Lily Torres's final message had started revolutions across their worlds. The leaders who had ordered humanity's destruction were handed over to face justice. The rest begged for mercy. The Primarchs, those ancient beings of pure energy who had shaped galactic civilization for 100,000 years, simply vanished. Their remaining members retreated to dimensions humanity could not access. They left behind a final message. We were wrong about you. We hope you prove us wrong about yourselves. One by one, the great powers fell into line. The trial of Commander Beltrix took place in the great Assembly Hall of the newly formed Galactic Federation. The chamber was built on the ruins of the old Council headquarters. It was designed to symbolize rebirth rather than conquest. Representatives from over 1,000 worlds filled the gallery. Humans sat alongside Vorton, Keth, and dozens of other species. High Arbiter Thalos, now stripped of his title and power, watched from a prison cell through a holographic display. He was scheduled to be tried next. Admiral Helena Cross stood at the prosecution's podium. Lieutenant Teresa Morales and Commander Marcus Webb flanked her. Across from them, Commander Beltrix sat in a containment field. His compound eyes darted nervously between the witnesses. This tribunal has been called to determine the guilt or innocence of Commander Beltrix of Meridian Station, the presiding judge announced. The charges are 43 counts of murder and crimes against sentient beings. How do you plead? Not guilty, Beltrix said. His translator barely conveyed the desperation in his voice. I was following orders. The council told me to. The council's orders do not excuse your actions, the judge interrupted. Following orders is not a defense against crimes of this level. Admiral Cross stepped forward. With permission, we would like to present our primary evidence. The chamber's holographic systems activated. They displayed Lily Torres's final transmission in full. Every being in the room watched as a 9-year-old girl documented her friend's murders. They watched her crawl through kilometers of maintenance tunnels. They watched her die alone in the dark. When the footage ended, the chamber was silent, except for the soft sounds of crying from multiple species. Lily Torres was 9 years old, Cross said. Her voice was steady, despite the emotions visible on her face. She liked painting and astronomy, and making friendship bracelets. Her teachers described her as kind, curious, and brave. She dreamed of becoming a diplomat so she could help different species understand each other. She turned to face Beltrix directly. You ordered her death because you were afraid. Not of what she was, but of what she represented. A future where humanity was accepted as equals. A future where the Council's power depended on cooperation rather than fear. I was protecting galactic stability, Beltrix protested. Humans were advancing too quickly. The Council was wrong. Cross's voice cut through his excuses. And so were you. You had a choice. You could have refused the order. You could have warned us. You could have done anything other than what you did. Teresa Morales stepped forward. In the days following the massacre, we discovered that Commander Beltrix personally approved the ammunition used by his security forces. Standard weapons would have been enough for any legitimate security response. Instead, he authorized armor-piercing explosive rounds. Weapons designed to kill enemies in heavy armor. The display showed images that made even hardened military officials look away. These weapons were used against children in civilian clothing, Teresa continued. Children who carried no weapons, no armor, no threat of any kind. The ammunition was selected specifically to ensure there would be no survivors. The tribunal deliberated for 17 minutes before returning a verdict. Commander Beltrix of Meridian Station, this tribunal finds you guilty on all charges. The sentence is death. Beltrix slumped in his containment field. Do you have anything to say? The judge asked. For a long moment, Beltrix was silent. Then, slowly, he raised his head. I do not expect forgiveness, he said. I do not deserve it. But I want the human species to know that I understand now what I did. Those children were not a threat. They were a gift. And I destroyed them because I was too afraid to see them for what they really were." He turned to face the gallery. He found the eyes of Lily Torres's parents, who had traveled from Earth to witness the trial. "I am sorry," he said. "Those words mean nothing. They cannot bring back what I took from you. But they are all I have left to offer." Mrs. Torres, her face wet with tears, spoke from her seat. "My daughter died trying to send a message of peace. She died believing that understanding between species was possible. If her death means anything, it means that you should have listened to her while she was alive." The tribunal concluded with Beltrix's removal to await execution. But the proceedings were not over. Admiral Cross requested permission to address the assembly. "1 year ago," she began, "humanity was a minor species struggling for acceptance in a galaxy that feared us. We sent our children as proof of our peaceful intentions, and those children were murdered. We could have responded with endless war. We could have destroyed civilization itself in our rage." She looked out at the assembled delegates. "We chose not to. We chose to use our power for justice rather than revenge. We chose to build rather than destroy. We chose to honor Lily Torres's memory by becoming what she believed we could be." Cross activated a final holographic display. It showed the memorial on Earth, now surrounded by similar memorials on 100 different worlds. Tributes created by alien species who had been moved by Lily's courage. The Galactic Federation exists because a 9-year-old girl refused to let hatred have the last word. She could have died in silence. She could have let her final moments be about fear and pain. Instead, she chose to tell the truth. She chose to believe that someone would listen. Cross turned to face Lily Torres's parents directly. "We listened. The galaxy listened. And we will never forget." In the silence that followed, something unexpected happened. A representative from the Free Alliance, a group of species that had spent generations fighting against the Council, rose from his seat and began to clap. A human gesture he had learned recently. One by one, other delegates joined him. Vorton, Keth, species that had been humanity's enemies weeks before. The applause grew until it filled the entire chamber. Not for humanity's military victory, not for their power or their vengeance, but for their choice to be better than what had been done to them. 10 years later, a statue was erected in the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Federation. It showed a young human girl, 9 years old, holding a drawing of 2 figures, one human and one alien, standing hand in hand beneath a sky full of stars. The inscription read simply, "Lily Tuhar, she believed we could be better, and we chose to prove her right every year." On the anniversary of her death, delegates from 1,000 worlds gathered at the statue to remember. Not the massacre, not the war, not the vengeance. They gathered to remember a child who died believing that peace was possible, and a species that chose to make her belief come true. The galaxy had awakened humanity's monsters, but in the end, humanity had chosen to be something more.